Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show. Glad to have you guys here on Monday, the 27th of May, 2024. Thank you for tuning in. Now, some real serious questions, and I have an awful lot of interest in this, what's going to happen, and I didn't know. Like, they're having a big court case with Trump, and it's about a hush money. And there is felony charges, from what I understand. He could get convicted. They're actually, the judge, I knew that the judge could possibly put him in jail. And so I was saying, how would that affect the presidency and stuff? How him running for presidency, I mean. I didn't know, and I wanted to find out, and this article is really good. It really helps to explain it all in logical terms and put it in perspective. So we're going to go over that article. And we have a number of other news stories coming up today, and including the markets later in the show. But first, before we really get started in all this, I wanted to talk about my show I produced yesterday for the members of my channel, and I was building a trailer, and in real time during the show, and you might say, well, what's it for? Why do you want a small, lightweight, really lightweight travel trailer? Well, you guys know I've been prepping for a long time, and I've put away an awful lot of canned food and dry food and water, right, here at home. But it's big, it's heavy, it's bulky. It's enough, probably. I could probably go 8 months or something like that, or maybe I'm just kind of having to guess. I mean, maybe I could go a bit longer than that with the provisions I have. But I was thinking to myself, you just don't know for sure when this thing strikes. If you want to know kind of what's going on right now with the whole situation, like what I call it, the crisis. I'll just call it the crisis, or call it the financial crisis, or what's going on with it all is, picture if you had a rubber band, an ordinary rubber band, and you had it between your thumb and index finger, and you're pulling it back. That's what you see happening right now. Pressure's building within the system. They're pulling the rubber band back. Well, whenever anybody starts to do that, they put a rubber band between their index finger and thumb and they pull it back. What do you know for an absolute certainty? That rubber band is going to spring back to its original shape again. It's going to snap. I mean, how long can a guy hold it? It takes effort to hold it, to keep it from snapping back. Well, that's what the Fed and what all these central banks have been doing is they've been putting effort in to try to hold back rubber band, and the effort requires them to pull the rubber band back farther and farther and farther. And the whole thing's going to snap all at once. And you see this pressure building within the system. You see wars building. You see, of course, now they're not really causing the weather effects, but you see the weather effects are building. You see disease out there, effects are building. This is all like pressure, and the financial system itself is building up to a climax or a crescendo. This is all pressure within the system. That pressure is going to relieve itself kind of suddenly, but right now we're in the period where the elastic band is being pulled back, and you got so many people out there who have what I call normalcy bias. In other words, they believe things are going to continue like they've always continued, and that this will just keep going on and on and on and on and on. And it has went on for a long time. But it's going to go snap. And so what I've been doing is I've been preparing for it, and now I'm increasing my preparedness. I'm saying to myself, hey, you know what? What if something happens in my area where you got to get out? And I mean, you say, well, what could that be that would force you out? Well, one thing could be weather. Could force you out of your primary place that you plan on hunkering down in this crisis that's coming. One could be weather, could force you out. And the second thing could be maybe a radiological disaster, maybe a nuclear power plant does like a Chernobyl, and you got to get out of that area, the range of the fallout, or nuclear war itself, or even war itself. During wars, you get what's called displacement of people. It's really hard, if you got to get out on foot, if you're forced to get out on foot. So what my plan is I'm building myself a what I call a land yacht. Now, I tried this before, and I failed. Little bit of a bizarre idea is I took a van and I put a camper up on the roof. Didn't turn out to be such a good idea. What happened was even though the van was heavy and the camper was fairly light, it had to do with the center of gravity and wind. It was a bit of a loss for me. My first land yacht. That was land yacht number 1. And it was a bit of a failure. I had a big gust of wind hit the van, and just like the semi-trucks sometimes with a big gust of wind can blow them over on their side. I mean, I had a difficult time driving through a windy period. But we get a lot of wind here in Atlantic Canada, and that's when I decided to remove it off the top of the van. And it was a bit of it really was difficult for me because I put a lot into building it. That was land yacht number 1, failure. It was like the Spruce Goose. You guys don't know what the Spruce Goose is. It was a giant airplane, the most enormous airplane ever made, I think. All out of spruce wood. But it flew. Now, it didn't fly very far, but it did fly. But they were going to use it for a troop carrier back during World War II. And I think it still exists in a museum someplace. It's like I think it's bigger than a 747. All made out of wood, if you can believe that. But funny thing about it is wood has a higher strength to weight ratio, or just as strong as steel. Wood is very, very good building material. But I'm straying off the subject here. So I'm building this camper. This is land yacht number 2. I'm going to have some dried food in there. Because I want lightweight, this time I'm going to start to dabble in freeze-dried food, which lasts like 30 years. And equipment to make water. I'm going to put like some sort of a homemade, maybe not homemade, I might buy it, some sort of a water production machine. So that I can actually make water. And I want to have a range of 800 miles. Tanks on this thing have a range of on this vehicle, will go 400 miles without a fill-up. And it takes 20 gallons. And I figure I'll take 20 gallons with me, and I can have a double fill-up so I can go 800 miles. Because, you guys know that if we do get some sort of a crisis, you ain't going to be able to buy gas. And only getting away 400 miles might not be far enough. You might have to get 800 miles away from wherever you're going to get away from the danger area. It could be anything from forest fires to nuclear radiation we're in very, very uncertain times now. But let's just say that everything remains fairly smooth where I am and we have our crisis. This will also enhance my food supply right here, because I'll have one food supply in the house, canned goods and stuff like that, but then I'll also have that freeze-dried food in the land yacht. And so it's given me more, what it's going to give me is a little bit of, and heck, I might have to use it next month, for crying out loud. We get a tremendous forest fire season here in Nova Scotia. And it's drying out right now. And I'm very concerned about that. Last year, hundreds of homes were burnt to the ground in enormous forest fires, and people were evacuated all across this province. And it's setting up to occur again. And now just think, if I'm in an evacuation zone right here for forest fires and I'm put out of my house, you know, I want to have a vehicle that I can just hop into the camper van and then into the land yacht, and I can go and I can and take like a little vacation while the forest fire burns. Well, I wouldn't want my house to burn down, but at least it would make it a bit more comfortable for me during that period in time. So that's a consideration. So we got to get on. We got to talk about this now. You know, I've talked about my new land yacht, and I'm really enjoying putting it together. But I got a ways to go yet. Got a transmission to put in that car. And I got to, why I'm laughing is that's one of the most expensive problems you can get that'll go wrong with a car. But the car is worth putting a transmission in, because it's got low miles and it's very good. It's in very good, the undercarriage is in very good condition. So it'll last a long time once it gets a new transmission. So there you go for that. Now we're going to talk about Trump here and what's going on. If he's convicted, can he still become president? And this is what I wanted to find out. So they gave the answers down here. They talked about what happens with a guilty verdict and what would be his grounds for appeal. And could Trump go to prison? Now, we're going to read that. It says, it is possible, though highly unlikely, that Mr. Trump would serve time behind bars in the event of a guilty verdict. The 34 charges he faces are all Class C felonies. Now, I got a question. How did they get it all the way up to 34 charges? That's a lot. Are all Class E felonies in New York, the lowest tier in the state. Each charge carries a maximum sentence of 4 years. So they could give him 4 years, 4 times 34 years they could give him. Maximum, I guess, from 34 felonies, and maximum 4 years each. It says there are several reasons why Justice Merchan could choose a lesser punishment, including Mr. Trump's age, his lack of previous convictions, and the fact that his charges involve a nonviolent crime. It is also possible that the judge would weigh the unprecedented nature of the case, perhaps choosing to avoid putting the former president current candidate behind bars. So I guess it's going to be up to the judge whether they put him behind bars or not. But if they put him behind bars, could he still run for president? Now, this is what was really interesting me. I wanted to know, could he still run for president? And the answer, it says here, could he still run for president? Yes. The U.S. Constitution sets out relatively few eligibility requirements for presidential candidates. They must be 35 years old, natural-born U.S. citizen, and have lived in the U.S. for at least 14 years. There are no rules blocking the candidate with a criminal record. So it says here that a guilty verdict could still sway the November presidential election. Interested in what that answer would be. And now I know. At least 20 people are dead. Listen, guys, this is the terrible tornado outbreak. I mean, I have never seen a worse one, because it's been lasting for weeks. It's been a multiple outbreaks over a period of time in different spots in the United States, and it's almost like breaking out like chicken pox, these tornadoes across the United States. 20 people dead in this latest bout as storms leave a path of destruction across the United States. Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, hundreds of injuries. Many homes are obliterated. Powerful storms are moving into... Listen, there's a debate out there. People are debating whether this is climate change. Some people are saying it is. Some people are saying it isn't. My opinion on this, and I don't care what other people think. I got my own opinion on this. And I think myself, about the airplanes out there that are having issues with turbulence. I got my own opinion on that, and I hear some people debating and saying, hey, is it climate change, and is it not climate change, and stuff, and they're arguing back and forth. But I use a clear mind, and I use simple logic. If you've got all these tornadoes coming through here with tops, cold tops, that go up 50,000, 60,000 feet into the air, they go up. They create turbulence. These storms create turbulence. And this is probably because I've been getting these storms. I've been seeing tornadoes in China now, for crying out loud. I've been seeing tornadoes in Europe, and big hail and enormous derechos and everything else occurring around the world, here, there, and everywhere, that don't normally occur. And I'm frightened we might even get a tornado here in Nova Scotia. We never have tornadoes. But they create turbulence in the atmosphere because they push this giant, enormous cloud head. They call it a thunderhead. They push it way up 50, 60,000 feet. That creates turbulence that can hang around up there for a long period of time. And that's all due to changing effects in our climate. So that's what's causing more than abnormally amounts of these type of storms around the world right now. And so I think it's a no-brainer just using your common sense, saying, hey, you know what? This is climate change causing the turbulence for these airplanes, as well as destroying all these homes and everything. Yeah, we've had tornadoes. I'm not doubting that. We get tornadoes. We've had tornadoes in the past. We've had bouts of tornadoes. But this is getting a bit ridiculous. And people should start waking up and saying, hey, what's going on here? How come we're getting so many tornadoes? Israel, widely condemned, including by allies, for striking an airstrike, has killed 45 at a tent camp. So they invaded Rafah. Now, we changed the subject, by the way. We're talking about Israel right now, and they invaded Rafah. It says Israel is widely condemned, including by allies, for airstrike killing 45 people at a Rafah tent camp. So evidently you had a bunch of displaced people, and they're living in tents and whatever, like a hobo town sort of place where people find whatever old sheet metal and tarps and whatever they can to try to live. And they got bombed, evidently, and an airstrike killed 45 in that tent camp. Okay, so this is part of the war that's going on. Wars that are going on, and they're very, very bad. Wars are very bad all over. I don't think you can separate war from atrocity. I think that they invented these laws that surround war. Back during the Second World War, what was it called? They had a name for the different laws that surround war. Geneva Convention, was it? I'm trying to think. I think it might have been Geneva Convention. But at any rate, wars turn into hell, and atrocities are generally committed during war times, all the way through history. It's part of warfare. And it's horrible. War is horrible. We need, as a species, to stop this stuff. It's about time that it's over for our planet being a planet that wages war on each other. Anyway, enough said about that. We're going to get in and talk about the silver price right now. $31.49 for silver. It's up $1.17. There's another big day, guys. But we did have that drop, and now we've made back most of what the drop was. That little drop we had. Remember, it went up to $32, and then it dropped back down, and I think it might have dropped under 30 down to $29 and change or something, but close to that anyway. It was right around $30, so we lost a couple bucks. Well, we've gained back 3/4 of that. No, it jumped 15 more cents. So we've made back most all of it. And silver is getting up toward that high again, where it could pass that $32 and continue to go up. It's kind of a little charge on silver right now. Now gold today, $23.55 bid. 23.31 ask, and we're looking at up $21.70 today. In cryptocurrency today, Bitcoin has crossed the $70,000 Rubicon now, and it did strike 72,000, so it's made back most of that loss because it went from 72,000 down to 62,000. Now it's back up to over 70,000. So here she goes. Bitcoin's starting to get on fire again. Ethereum is at 39.67 and XRP's at 53.5 cents. Now the Dow Jones Industrial Average today is up 4 points at 39,069. And crude oil is at 78.45 today. Crude oil doesn't seem to be crossing that $80 mark. It seems to be holding back from that. But you know, if war were to break out in the Middle East, I mean, I'm talking about regional war. If a regional war were to break out in the Middle East, of say between Iran and crude oil could go to $200 a barrel overnight. That would really help inflation. Taking a look at the U.S. Treasuries today, we see a little bit of a mixed bag today, but the long end of the yield curve is what we watch here on this channel, especially the 10-year, and it's dropped 0.8 of a basis point on the U.S. 10-year at 4.46, and the U.S. 30-year is at 4.57, and it's dropped 0.7 of a basis point. And the dollar index today has got a little bit of volatility, but it's dropping at 104.59. You see these spikes? Several of them there. That's why I say volatility, especially this one right here, where it went up to 104.75 suddenly and then fell right back down again. Anyway, thank you guys for listening to the show. Remember, it's easy to join up to become a member of the channel. Then you get special shows. And there's other perks. You get to watch this show exactly when it... you don't have to wait to watch your show. And there's a show done every weekend. It's like a behind-the-scenes kind of show. And then also, I'm going to start throwing in a bit of other stuff, a little bit of other perks, you know, as far as other shows, too. And so it's well worth, I mean... it's only $3 in Canadian. I mean American. It's only, what is it? Anyway, it's only about the price of a cup of coffee, or maybe a fairly expensive cup. I know you can still get cups of coffee for like under $2. I think some places, but it's probably brewed with city water. You're going to get coffee that's going to taste good. You're going to pay a little bit more. But we got a great coffee place here in Canada that you guys, I don't think you have it in the United States, called Tim Hortons. And it's kind of like a Dunkin' Donuts, except way better. It's my opinion. That's just my opinion. Nothing bad against Dunkin' Donuts or anything like that, but I just think it's way better than Dunkin' Donuts. And they've just added pizza there. I couldn't believe it, to their menu. I mean, normally they sell like donuts and cakes and stuff like that, and sandwiches and stuff like that. That's their normal bill of fare, you know, and great coffee, the best coffee and stuff like that, you know. But now just about a couple weeks ago, they added pizza. And it's $7 Canadian for the pizza, right? I mean, you say, well, that's kind of high. We can go to Domino's or whatever, or we can go to Little Caesars or whatever, a lot cheaper. But you got to consider that a Canadian dollar is only worth 70 cents, roughly. So $7 Canadian is like $5 American. And the thing about it is it's for me, it fills me up. It's one of those pizzas, not a real big pizza, and it fills me up for $5, which is not bad. I don't think it's too bad, and they're not that bad a pizza. It tastes pretty good, you know. Anyway, listen, thank you guys for watching the show, and we'll catch you guys in the next show, and you guys have a great day. Bye-bye.